So in this video, we'll be doing a small application called HeartRate application in Java to understand the concepts of classes, objects, constructor, and so on. So the definition of the question demands that we need to create a class HeartRates. It should have the class attribute should include person's first name, last name, date of birth. Date of birth should consist of separate attribute for month, day, and year. And then it should have a constructor that receives this data as parameter. For each attribute, we need to have a getter setter method. Class should also include following methods, like a method that calculate and return person's age in years. Next is a method that calculate and return person's maximum heart rate. And there is a formula given for calculating heart rate, that is 220 minus your age will be the maximum number of beats per minute. And third C part says you need to calculate and return person's target heart rate, and there is also a formula for that. So we have understood that we need to create a class with these three variables: first name, last name, and a date of birth. So Java does not provide a date of birth class as such. So we need to create another class date of birth which will have three variables for date, month, and year. And these three functions we need to define in HeartRate class. So let us get going and start creating the program in our Eclipse. So for this I have created this folder, a project already, and in this I can do right click and add new class. So first of all, I'm naming it as something and giving name of my class as HeartRate. Okay, so this is the class which will contain the variables we were discussing. Okay, so in this, first thing is we need to have first name, last name, and date of birth. So for first name, it will be string. For last name, again a string variable. And for date of birth, which we were discussing, that it is a class that we need to define. So define it in this same file also. You can create one more class file and then write that code there also. So I'm doing this in same file, class date of birth, and in this I'm assigning three variables: int day, int month. I'm writing it int because I want the validations to be simple, that it should be from 1 to 12, and then int year. Okay, for this we need to generate a constructor. So to define a constructor, we need to have a function naming same as class without any return type. And in this I'm assigning three variable. I can write it something else like int d, int m, and int y. Okay, and I need to assign day is equals to d, month is equals to m, and year is equals to y. Okay, so this is I'm assigning. Here one thing was also asked, that we need to check if this thing is valid or not. So for this we can do two things. We can write a separate functions which will check if it is valid or not, because in constructor it will anyhow run. Okay, you cannot stop it from running. So we can do two things. One thing is, in this I'm making a condition that if date is greater than 0 and date is less than 31, for simplicity I'm assuming all months can have maximum 31 value, and next condition I'm matching is month should be greater than 0 and month should be less than 12, less than 13, because it can have, here also I should write less than equal to 31. Okay, and next condition for year, Let us assume that year is not less than what, 1920. We are assuming that person will not be more than 100 years of age. You can set that value accordingly, and year should not be greater than 2020. Okay, so the person will not be born if it is greater than 2020. So for all these conditions, if all these conditions are true, I am using AND operator because I want all these to be true. If they are true, I will assign my date, month and year the variable, the values. Otherwise, if the condition is not true, else I'll simply assign days equals to 0, month is equals to 0. This I don't need to do actually, because by default these variables will be initialized to 0. Okay, so I have indented. So this is date of birth. And what else we need to add in date of birth? Is there anything specified? So date of birth should have a constructor, and it is asking for appropriate validation check in another function. So what we have done here, we can skip it and we can write another function like void check dob. It may return a boolean value indicating that this date of birth is valid or not. So here I am using this condition. These were two different ways I can do in the constructor itself, but the question here was asking to write a separate function. So I am now writing a separate function, and in this I have written this condition that, okay, so it will not take d, it will take day, because day is the class variable, d was just the local variable to this function. Okay, so if day is greater than this and month and for year this condition, if all these are true, I'm returning, if all these conditions are true, I'll return true, else I will return false. Okay, so this is where my function closes and this is how my class closes. So in HeartRate, I'll have an object of dob. dob of patient. I can name it anything. So now in HeartRate, what we need to have? We need to add a constructor. So to create a constructor, one method was this, which I was writing. Another thing is, a very good option is available in Eclipse. You can do is in I think source, you can find a function called generate constructors. So here I need a constructor which will parameterize constructor was asked. So these three will be variables which will be initialized. A public constructor. So when I'll generate it, so you can see this function is all automatically created by Eclipse. So public HeartRate. You can write it yourself also. For string, these three variables it will take as parameter, and then it will assign to, we don't need to call super, or super will be called or not. So this date of patient, since it is a date of birth, this object will be assigned directly. Okay, so the other thing which was asked was to generate getter setter. That also we can do here directly by source generate getter setter, and we can write getter setter for all these variables. This code will be automatically generated. Okay, so get name will return name, get set name will set this name to the equal to the value that is received as the parameter. So after getter setter and constructor, the next part which was asked, let us check again. was to calculate maximum heart rate. So we need to have a function called maximum heart rate. So it will return a variable. Let us take it as float max heart rate. Make this function public because you may want to access it outside the package. So public float max heart rate. What this function will do? This function was supposed to calculate and return the person's maximum heart rate. Before that, you need to calculate and return person's age also. So age, let us take it an integer. Calculate age is the function, and it will check the current age in years. We need to check the age in years only. So we will subtract, we'll take a variable a and we'll calculate age as 2020 minus the user's year, date of year. So date of patient is the object of date of birth dot year. So 2020 minus his year will be age, and we will simply return this age. In this heart rate, we'll check heart rate as floating variable rate, and this rate is calculated as calculated age. It will return a variable, it will return what is the age of the patient, and we need to multiply that age by what was given. No, so 220 minus your age. So you need to subtract this from 220 minus calculated age. If you are finding this code difficult, you can also take an intermediate variable and assign calculated age here, and then here you can write a. Both ways it is fine, and then whatever rate you have calculated, you have to return it. So return the rate that you have calculated, because this function demands you will return a floating point number. So floating variable rate I have returned here. Okay, one more function was required. So the function is target heart rate. So float target heart rate. This function also will return the target heart rate. So target heart rate will have two things, a lower range and a higher range. So method that calculate and return targets person's target heart rate is a range that's 50 to 80% of your maximum heart rate. So you can return only one thing. So what we can do here, we cannot return two things. Either we have to create a separate class called target heart rate, or let us print it in the function and return only one variable. So float minimum and maximum I need to check two values. Minimum is calculated as 50% of 0.50 into max heart rate. So max heart rate we have already defined. 0.5 into max, 0.5 into max heart rate. So what is the issue? Double to float. So by default, whenever we write any decimal, any fraction number, it is decimal, it is double. So when we write f here, it will become a floating point number. So floating into this, and max is equals to 0.85 0.85 f into max heart rate. So we can print it here. Target heart rate if it is required, or we can have two separate function. Okay, because we need to print all the thing in the main, let us write two function. Minimum target heart rate. See, we are doing this because we have calculated two value, minimum heart rate and maximum heart rate. Okay, so and one function cannot return two variables, so I am writing here minimum target heart rate, and whatever I have calculated here I am copying it and write maximum heart rate. This will return minimum, maximum is not required here, and this will calculate maximum, the other variable is also not required, and it will return max. Okay, so this is how the complete class looks. In this class I have three variables, a constructor, okay, getter, setter for everything, calculate age, maximum heart rate, and target rate. I have created two functions, minimum target heart rate and maximum target heart rate. So now to use this class we need to create one more class which will use it. We can right click and create new class. I am naming it as heart rate application. I want to have it main function also. So in this, to use this class, first of all I need to use its object. Okay, so when I'll be creating a heart rate object, like heart rate h is equals to new heart rate. So we have defined a parameterized constructor. Here the object will be created when I'll pass two string and one date of birth. Okay, so two string I can pass like Ram Mohan, anything, but third thing is a new third thing that it requires is a date of birth object. And to create a date of birth, see here we have this class. To create this object I need to pass two integers which will define day, month and year. Okay, so the object for date of birth is new date of birth and three integers. So let us say 12 December 2010. Okay, so DOB it is not a reading because we need to import it. Heart rate it is also not a reading because, okay, so the doubt is we need to assign this thing here. So what is the issue? No enclosing instance of type heart rate is accessible. That is fine. Oh, so have we closed it? So there was some mistake. This class DOB is in this class heart rate, which surely we don't want. We want it to be a separate class. So we need to close one more curly braces here. Now date of birth is an independent class. This is enclosed and this is enclosed. So this import was wrong. Date of birth and heart rate. Okay, so this is heart rate for 1. We can create heart rate for 2 second person, any name, and again one more date of birth. You can create the object here itself, new date of birth, and then 1 January 1990. So these two objects I have created. Then I need to call few functions. So we have not used this function check dob. We can do this before passing this variable here or at the time of calculating age. So here date of birth, year we are doing. We can do one more thing here. We can check if that age is valid or not. Okay, so how to check that? Let us take a variable s and say, okay, so it will return boolean. Boolean flag is equals to the date of patient and the function is check dob. So date of patient dot check dob. If it returns true, we'll calculate it like this. If flag double equals to true, we'll calculate age like this, and if it is false, then return any negative value. Okay, so if it is returning negative value means the date of birth was not valid. And similarly we can make changes in all the function, that whatever, if the calculate age is returning a negative value means the age is not valid, and it in turns it will also return a negative value. Okay, so here after doing this we can directly print the information, like we need first name, then last name, then heart rate, max heart rate, age was also calculated, age, max heart rate, and target heart rate. This is we need to print. For first object it is h dot f name is the first, and then concatenating it with its last name h dot l name, then concatenating it with its age. For age, so we need to calculate age, so it has the function h dot calculate age, and then concatenating it and \tab, so it will print age. For max heart rate it will say h dot max heart rate. Okay, let us remove this ln and write it in one more SOP statement. So we have done till heart rate, and then there will be a tab, and then target heart rate. For target heart rate I'll write two values. Max, first is min h dot Minimum target heart rate, I am using a hyphen to show it between minimum and maximum, and then plus h dot maximum target heart rate. So let us do it for one, and if it works, we'll see it for second. Okay, so this is first name, this is last name, age is -1, 221. So why age is returning -1? Calculated age is showing -1 because 2020. So it is saying it is not valid. Check DOB. Date is greater than 0, less than 31. Month is greater than 0, less than 13. Year, okay, less than 9. Year should be greater than 1920 and year should be less than 2020. So this was a mistake. I'm sorry. It's okay. So it is saying age to be 10 and this is minimum maximum. We can use some specifiers to mention the space that we'll do later. As of now, we can see these variables are working. For more understanding, you can write 2 tabs here. Although it is not very good method, we should use formatted output, but anyhow it runs. Similarly, we can do this for H2, the second patient. Okay, I hope you understood it. For any queries, you can mail your code or you can write it in the comments.